Fofi is a giant spider cryptid said to inhabit the Congolese forests. Descriptions vary between a funnel web spider and a gigantic tarantula. We thought the latter would be more pragmatic, but the funnel webs made it to the final artwork. As I said, the tarantula type was decided early on, being that a myriad of tarantulas roam the Congolese forests. Now for the crazier part. Some accounts put these spiders at 1.5 meter leg span. That's a tarantula capable of taking down medium to large mammals like leopards, juvenile okapi, and humans. Now, the medium-sized tarantula reaches like 15 centimeters leg span, and it's capable of hunting down like small mice, small lizards, the occasional bird, but this cryptid takes it to the next level, making it one of the most interesting in our series. The best known alleged Fofi sighting occurred in 1938 in the interior of the Belgian Congo and was made by explorers Reginald and Marguerite Lloyd, a couple that was driving down the roads of the Belgian Congo at the time. Now it's the Democratic Republic of the Congo, so at the time it was pretty different. And this couple made one of the best known accounts of this cryptid, which is as following. Whilst they were driving down a jungle path, a figure crawled out onto the road ahead of their car, which Reginald Lloyd took to be a cat or a monkey, like a big cat or a big monkey, or even a small child. They really didn't understand at first what it was that crawled into the road. He stopped the car to let the figure pass, and seeing that it was in fact an enormous spider, like a tarantula, big hairy spider, turned to get his camera, only for the spider to scuttle away into the undergrowth. The account was later passed on to Bill Gibbons by the Lloyd's daughter, Margaret. Now, this has to be one of the best descriptions of this cryptid, and I think it's a description that made me fall in love with this cryptid. It's so cinematic, it's so, I think, visceral. We can almost be there in the footsteps of these explorers and see the spider ourselves if we close our eyes. It's really amazing, and it's one of the things that made me draw this series in the first place. These cryptids are said to be extremely venomous, but I don't think that makes a lot of sense. We, as authors, don't think the Fofi being extremely venomous makes a lot of sense because it's a almost 2 meter leg span spider. It doesn't really need to be extremely venomous to deliver a fatal bite, so we didn't really took that into account when conceptualizing or finalizing the cryptid itself. Now we had this giant defensive tarantula conceptualized. I say defensive because they're said to be extremely aggressive, but I find aggressive to be a mistake. Do not call them that, they're just animals, so it's best to say they're defensive. And we actually started off with a nest of babies on the first volume, even though these babies are born the size of the biggest tarantula alive today, the Thyreophausa blondi. It's a South American gigantic tarantula. It reaches the size of a dinner plate. It has the common name bird hitter, so you can picture this spider like crawling to the bird's nest and hitting the birds. I think that's how it was discovered. It's actually another crazy story because it was discovered by a scientist, a female scientist, if I'm not mistaken. And she said she saw a spider, a gigantic spider, hitting a bird, and she was ridicularized by the scientific committee, and they actually found some years later that account to be true. And the Thyreophausa blondi is the biggest terrestrial arachnid, I think, known today to be alive. There were bigger arachnids in the Carboniferous era, but that's a subject for another video. Back to it. So, throughout our series, various adults also make troublesome appearances. So they come in contact with some of our characters, some of our protagonists, human protagonists. But we wanted to really emphasize that no tarantula attacks unprovoked. We have to bear in mind these are animals. They're not out there to kill you. They're not out there to come crawling in your bed. Those are just myths. No one swallows 10 spiders per night. That's a National Geographic myth, and it's actually a really fun one because I think those few words have created more arachnophobes than we can count. So, although this is a very scary looking cryptid, a very defensive cryptid, it's still an animal and it isn't out there to follow our characters to their death. Whenever some encounter happens, is the human's fault. So, every time there's an attack, the humans messed with it first, which is blatantly realistic. As an owner of several species of tarantula, this was probably my favorite cryptid to conceptualize. If you want to know this cryptid and a bunch more, you can head over to the links in the description. We have digital comics on Amazon, Google Play, and a very special announcement. Our official store is now launched and we have some comics and merch for you to check out. If you want to support us, we appreciate you. Nguma Monene meaning large python in the Lingala language, is a cryptid said to inhabit Central Africa. Descriptions vary between a snake-like animal, a mosasaur for some reason, and a spinosaur. We thought the latter would be the best depiction of this cryptid. That and a Spinosaurus is one of our favorite dinosaurs since Jurassic Park 3 came out, so we thought it made sense to be a Spinosaur. There are actually not many reports of this animal, so we had creative liberty with this one. We started by looking at Spinosaurus depictions, which is quite hard, given that this animal has been changing quite a lot to the eyes of science. Since when we published our first book in 2017, Spinosaurus has been through a lot of changes, the big, robust tail being the more prominent one. It seems like there is never a definitive version of Spinosaurus. We know that Spinosaurus roamed North Africa in the early Cretaceous, so it became like an obvious choice for us to use them as a cryptid in the Congo series. At the end, we ended up with a large Spinosaur with a somewhat smaller sail and definitely built for swimming. Unlike the real Spinosaurus, we really don't know at this point what this animal really did. Even so, Spinosaurus is often associated with water, and we wanted it to resemble one as much as possible. From illustration to 3D animation, our Nguma Monene has been represented widely, with a very special appearance in our short film, Through the Path of Darkness. In this film and in the book, Nguma Monene follows our characters to a swamp-like area, where it unleashes chaos.
Nguma Monene.
Creating this cryptid from scratch has been a wild ride. We hope to deliver more of it in the near future, whether it be in animation, film, books, alongside other big carnivorous cryptids. We hope you like this video. If you want to find out more about Nguma Monene, here's our newest book, where it's featured in. Sadly, there's only the Portuguese version yet, but in the future, who knows. Emela Ntouka, meaning elephant killer in the Lingala language, is a neo-dinosaurian cryptid said to inhabit the Congolese forests and swamps. Also known as Chipekve, this animal is often described as a ceratopsian dinosaur with a large horn on its nose, somewhat resembling a Styracosaurus, even though some cryptozoologists regard it as a mammal, making it to be some kind of rhinoceros. As said by a French colonial wildlife inspector Lucien Blanco in an article about rhinoceros in the Congo in 1954. The Africans in the north of the Kala district, especially the Pygmies, know a forest animal larger than a buffalo, almost as large as an elephant, but which is not an hippopotamus. Its tracks are only seen at long intervals, but they fear it more than any other dangerous animal. Emela Ntouka is regarded as an extremely territorial animal, akin to the Mokele Mbembe, that will kill any trespassers such as elephants and hippos, and, ultimately, humans too. It may not seem difficult to conceptualize an elephant-sized ceratopsian, but it turns out to be not quite easy to. Many reports describe it as having no frill, which was a common trait among the ceratopsian dinosaurs. Just take a look at the head shapes on these animals. They surely were among, if not the most diverse of all the dinosaurs, ranging from 1 meter and 20 kilograms to over 9 meters and almost 10,000 kilograms. Also, keeping in mind the theme of our story, turning almost all of the cryptids into neo-dinosaurs, it made sense to abandon the water rhinoceros theory, which, even though more plausible, will not make much sense in the world we're building. After all, why make the Mokele Mbembe a sauropod, the Nguma Monene a spinosaur, the Kongamato a pterosaur, not a dinosaur, the Kasai Rex an abelosaur, the Congoraptor a dromaeosaur, this one is too on the nose, and the Emela Ntouka not being a ceratopsian? You get the idea. Even so, no ceratopsian fossils have been found in Africa, so we had to look at Centrosaurus and Styracosaurus as the main inspiration for the look of this animal, keeping in mind some creative liberties, of course. We ended up with this almost elephant-sized, aggressive, horned ceratopsian as the Emela Ntouka. Even the brief appearance of a herd in our book, Amelia, a Congo Story, is enough to cause damage to the main characters. For those who don't know, Amélia, a Congo story, is a Congo spin-off which follows the story from the eyes of the Portuguese nurse, while also working as a prequel to the series, fleshing out the characters and their backstories even more. But no more spoilers. An English translation may be coming soon as an ebook, and in the future, who knows. Be sure to subscribe and activate the bell icon so you don't miss out on our latest videos. Also, check out the links in the description if you're interested in this kind of content. Congoraptor is a dromaeosaur cryptid from the Congo, also known as Afroraptor. Descriptions, which are extremely scarce, depict almost exactly what he thought a velociraptor was back in the 90s. A very fast and agile featherless dinosaur. Well, nowadays the fast and agile part is still accurate, but the featherless part not so much. Congoraptor is said to reach 2 meters tall and close to 4 meters in length, which is almost as big as a Utahraptor. A dromaeosaur of these proportions would absolutely obliterate anything in its territory. It's easy to picture it also hunting humans, as we would be the perfect prey size for it to devour. The major problem with Congoraptor is the lack of descriptions, or anything really. We had to keep that in mind and go straight for the Utahraptor approach, as the Jurassic Park one is now extremely outdated. Dromaeosaurs came in all kinds of shapes, surely full of feathers. These were very agile predators. Here's the real Velociraptor, much smaller than thought, with a much narrower head shape and smaller sickle claw. If Velociraptor found a human, odds are it wouldn't attack, at least not alone. And that's another thing about these dinosaurs. We're used to the amazing illustrations of big groups of Deinonychus attacking herbivores of all sizes. Could these depictions be true? Well, we may never know. It's believed that these animals could have hunted in a strategy similar to today's Komodo dragons, being that these are mainly solitary animals but gather in order to take down large prey, one bite at a time, until it eventually dies and they can feast. Dromaeosaurs could have been solitary animals after all. It's funny that we're now thinking tyrannosaurs could have been better parents than velociraptors. Who would have thought? Thought. We ended up with this big dromaeosaur that seems to like climbing trees. We know that's more like a microraptor thing, but it could work for our Congoraptor, given that it lives in an extremely harsh ecosystem. And that's the thing, Congoraptor has to share its environment with other cryptids such as Kasai Rex or Nguma Monene. And even the herbivores like Mokele Mbembe or Emela Ntouka are quite big for it to choose them as prey. So, where would Congoraptor fit in this forgotten world? Well, it probably has to either hunt in packs and/or hunt only the juveniles, which would dictate its downfall easily. For its color, we took inspiration from tokay geckos, simply because there is no description of Congoraptor's color, so we had the chance to do as we wanted. Also, generally, tokays are quite feisty animals, and although not even closely related to dromaeosaurs, they somehow remind us of raptors. They can cohabit and tolerate each other, even care for their young. They're social animals, and that's basically how we're constructing our cryptid to be. As it didn't yet make a proper appearance in our books, we are still trying to figure out where it fits exactly in this ecosystem and what's its role. Congoraptor actually appears in our latest book, Congo, A Forgotten World, but is basically just in the background. You can leave your suggestions down below, because we really want to make this one of our main cryptids. Hello, my name is Henrique Gandum. I'm the illustrator and co-author of the Congo series, and today I'm here to talk about Mokele Mbembe. When we were picturing Mokele Mbembe, we already had an idea of what we wanted. We already knew from the start Mokele Mbembe was one of the most famous cryptids, like worldwide. Not as famous as Loch Ness or the Bigfoot, but we knew he was the most famous Congolese cryptid of all time, and we wanted to make him justice. We knew from the start also that Mokele Mbembe was a creationist creation, if that's something you can say. We wanted to step really away from that. We didn't want to go near any creationist ideas, and we wanted to go like on a more scientific approach. We knew from the start we had to respect the source material. The source material says Mokele Mbembe is basically like this 5-meter long tiny sauropod, and we didn't want to go that route. We wanted to go bigger and more like an impressive size sauropod. So we started conceptualizing the animal. On our conceptual task, we basically wanted to somehow make a sauropod that was built for the forest and the Congolese swamps. That was a real task because, unlike the real sauropods that were mostly built for desert environments, Mokele Mbembe had to traverse this immense jungle But now let's get to what Mokele Mbembe means. It means stopping the flow of rivers in the Lingala language, and we really wanted to go like the bigger route for this animal, and we ended up like losing the horns that some of these descriptions said it had, like this giant horn in the snout, which we totally abandoned for the more, I think, realistic approach. There's no known sauropod that has those kind of ornaments, so we didn't want to go that route, but we ended up adding some spikes along its back, making it more menacing. And because some descriptions say it has like these almost meter-long spikes it uses to break the canoes and kill the hippos in the river, and we thought that would be like a cool ornament for this animal to have. So now we had this 20+ meter long sauropod with spikes all over, full of aggression and an avid swimmer, and we wanted to make sure it fitted right in a story we wanted to tell. So we had like these human thieves coming to collect some eggs from its nest, and this very large female Mokele Mbembe follows them all over the Congolese swamps and the Congolese region where they're at, which is the Likuala swamp region, one of the most unexplored swamps in the entire world, even today. So imagine like the story is in the Victorian era, so imagine at that time there wasn't really any exploration made in the area, so it's perfect for the setup of our story. This cryptid was one of the most fun cryptids to create in all of our books, and it's like the main antagonist in all the books because it's also the most famous and the story makes sense to have it as an antagonist. And we really wanted to reflect on the animal behaviors these kind of beasts, these kind of animals, we can say, had or are supposed to have. So we didn't want to portray like this really docile herbivore we're very used in the media to see. Herbivore dinosaurs are like very, very tame. This is not the case. Mokele Mbembe is like the worst of the cryptids in all the books. It's an herbivore, yes. We didn't change that, we didn't make it go the carnivore route, but we really went extra on that aggression. So you can find our Mokele Mbembe in all of our books, from Congo, A Forgotten World to Amelia, A Congo Story. It's not the only cryptid that's there, but it's the main one. Yes, we can tell you that. Maybe not in Amelia, but it surely is the main cryptid in our first book. Its story continues throughout, so it's up for you to check out. And we really hope you like. You can find all of our books in the links in the description. Kongamato, which means boat breaker in the native language of Zambia, is a cryptid native to the deep and unexplored forests of Central Africa. Descriptions actually depict pretty much the same animal, a creature with a beak filled with long, jagged teeth, which is also supported by people that have supposedly been bitten by one. Kongamato bites are actually pretty common among villagers from the Congo or other Central African countries, in which the villagers return to their hometowns heavily injured. When looking at depictions of this cryptid, we noticed it looked like an oversized Rhamphorhynchus, so that's what we ended up following. Kongamato is also said to be one of the most aggressive and territorial of all the Congolese cryptids, known to swarm unsuspecting fishermen. This makes sense as the current consensus is that pterosaurs mainly hate fish, so it's normal that most of the attacks occur near water. Kongamato actually appears in our short film Through the Path of Darkness alongside Nguma Monene, but has a very brief appearance. We ended up with this 2-meter wingspan vicious pterosaur that lurks the forests and swamps of the Congo. You can actually see it in action in our newest book, where it actually bites the shoulder of one of our characters. But Nguma Monene ends up avenging him. Right here, but no more spoilers. If you want to find out more about Kongamato, be sure to check out our links, those are in the description. Kasai Rex is a theropod dinosaur from the Congo. Descriptions vary between a tyrannosaur and an extremely large monitor lizard, but the general consensus is that it is in fact a dinosaur. It is said to have been 13 meters in length, which no lizard ever was, that we know of. The biggest lizard was Megalania, a 6-meter long relative of the Komodo dragon that lived in Australia during the Pleistocene. Also, there is this image, a proven fake, of a supposed Kasai Rex, which is just a monitor lizard taken from a National Geographic magazine, in a time where Photoshop didn't yet exist. Now, with all this giant lizard talk out of the way, we have to try and see the Kasai Rex as a theropod. And which theropod could it be? There were no tyrannosaurs in Africa. So, as cool as it would have sounded, it must not be a T-Rex. We will get to that later. The first recorded sighting happened in 1932 and is as follows. The experienced Swedish hunter Ronald Johnson wanted to hunt a huge elephant, so he and his servant left their camp in Cape Town. They crossed the swamp until finally reaching the savannah in the Kasai Valley, which seemed desolate, as there were no animals anywhere. There was until the servant yelled in excitement when he saw 2 elephants, so Johnson got his shotgun ready, but something was wrong with them. There were only 2, instead of an entire herd. About 44 meters away, there was something in the underbrush stalking the elephants, and it suddenly, a strange creature, jumped. The servant dropped into the undergrowth, while Johnson, paralyzed, changed aim and decided to shoot this strange creature. He shot the creature 3 times, and only one shot hit it, hitting in the back. The creature backed away and left. Johnson got his servant up from the ground and decided to go back to his camp in Cape Town. But first, they had to cross the swamp. When they were halfway across the swamp, they heard a splash and thought of crocodiles. Johnson looked everywhere until they saw 20 meters away the same creature that they saw in the savannah, tearing the hump of a rhinoceros, and with one bite tore one of the rhinoceros' legs off. Johnson's servant ran terrified, while John stayed there. He immediately thought of shooting the creature, but remembered terrified that the servant had taken his shotgun, but he still had his camera, so he took a photo of the creature, which upon hearing the click sank quickly into the lake, while the rhinoceros' body floated in a pool of blood. Upon returning to camp, John walked shivering and shaking, collapsed, and the man in there picked him up. It was reddish in color, with blackish colored stripes, he said in his interview with the newspaper Rhodesia Herald. It had a long snout and numerous teeth. He decided that the creature was a Tyrannosaurus, and also said the legs were thick. It reminded me of a lion, but built for speed. Now, this must be one of the most incredible cryptid sightings, if not the most incredible itself. By being so detailed and realistic, you can see why it captured the attention of so many people across the globe, and why the Kasai Rex is still talked about until today. Following the thought of which theropod it may be, we have to keep in mind the large African theropods from the end of the Cretaceous. A Carcharodontosaur may seem the obvious answer. These theropods were as big or bigger than the tyrant king itself, and some species did in fact roam Africa during the Cretaceous, even terrorizing the likes of Spinosaurus, which was the largest terrestrial predator the world has ever seen, at least as far as we know. But the Carcharodontosaurs died out before the end of the Cretaceous, so realistically, even if there were to be a small group of dinosaurs to survive the extinction, they would not be among them, because they were already extinct. The obvious contender for the role of the Kasai Rex ultimately came to be an Abelisaur, and a giant one at that. Abelisaurs were the top predators in Africa, South America, and some parts of Asia. At the same time, T-Rex was ruling North America. And they were really diverse. The most famous of them all has to be the Carnotaurus, with the long horns on the top of its head, the large size, and weirdly small arms. Spoiler, all Abelisaurs had weirdly small arms, which were probably only used for display. Even so, no Abelisaur close to 13 meters in length has been found, although some fragments and footprints found suggest there could have existed an Abelisaur species bigger than Pycnonemosaurus or Carnotaurus, possibly reaching sizes more along the lines of T-Rex and Carcharodontosaurs. It made a lot of sense for our comic book series to incorporate an Abelisaur as the Kasai Rex, even if it started out as a Carcharodontosaurid in the first few sketches. We owe much of that to the speculative evolution forums, which describe in incredible detail what Abelisaurs could have evolved to look like today, in a world devoid of humans, if the extinction wasn't to occur. So we ended up with this 13-meter long, giant aggressive Abelisaur that tears everything and everyone in its path. The pure muscle and power of this animal would give T-Rex itself a very hard time. And now, the jungles of Congo will never be the same again. Even other large predators, such as the Nguma Monene, have to learn to coexist with such an incredibly powerful animal. Even the Mokele Mbembe has to be weary of the Kasai Rex. Ultimately, this was not a very hard cryptid to bring to life in our series, because of the very detailed descriptions. We just ended up adding some proto-feathers and other details to make it look as accurate as possible. And yes, I know that if an Abelisaur were to evolve 66 million years until today, it would probably lose its small arms, but we went with a display approach and even added some feathers on it to make them pop a bit more. The small horns and blackish, thick scales on its snout were conceptualized mostly for defense against each other, as abelisaurs are known to have been cannibalistic, if given the chance. These are more prominent on our male Kasai Rex, which didn't yet made an appearance on our published books, but surely will. Kasai Rex makes appearances in both Congo, Through the Path of Darkness, and Amelia, a Congo story. But I won't tell you more, I don't want to spoil anything. I just want to ask you one simple question. Who would win in a fight between the Spinosaur Nguma Monene and the Kasai Rex? Leave your suggestions down below, as they're really important for us to keep telling this story in a concise way. Before I end this video, I just want to thank you all for your support. You have been really receptive of the scripted videos, and this being the last one, for now, we really can't thank you enough. So, thank you for watching, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe and activate the bell icon, and until next time!